Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to June on the Range. This is year two of a great BookTube event created by Michael K. Vaughan, in which a whole posse of owl hoots get together on BookTube to talk about Westerns, which were once a gigantic genre and now a tiny, tiny remnant. You read the books, you watch the TV shows, you watch the movies, you just talk about Westerns all month long in June. Tremendous fun. All throughout the year, as I have encountered Western novels, I have set them aside and almost not read any of them, so that I have plenty to read in addition to all the ebooks that I have. And we're doing a print and paper book today from 1966. This is The Hungry Gun by Steve Thurman, which once again has this obnoxious marking on it. Shop owners who had, ratty old paperbacks like this in boxes would put those markers on them, maybe write the price on them or something like that. I don't have any hankering to have a pristine copy of The Hungry Gun, but it's not a long thing. Most Westerns are not long. One of the things that you learn when you delve into them, as I do on June on the Range, is you learn two things. One is that most of them are a single sitting hour-long read, which I can't help but think is a part of the reason why they were so popular. And the other thing you learn is that no matter what the name is, no matter what author you come across, if you don't, Bob Smith, Steve Thurman, whatever, you've never heard the name before, you can be almost guaranteed that when you look into that author, they have written hundreds of books. Hundreds of books. Under their own name, under pseudonyms. I'm pretty sure that's true of Steve Thurman. I think he churned out pulp every day of his life, probably. This is it's a light novel. There's not much to it. It's a very standard Western thing. The main character is Will Cade. And for years, a long time ago, before the action of this novel opens, he was in criminal cahoots with someone named Pidge Leaper, who couldn't really be a hero of a book with a name like that. But Will Cade decided to go straight. He decided to give up a life of crime. And he moved to Flag, a town called Flag in the Arizona Territories, and decided to become an upstanding member of civilization, to be part of a horse ranch, to maybe court a young lady, have a normal life outside the Owl Hoot Trail. But as the book's opening chapters, this is a fairly well done thing, as you will find is true with veteran pulp writers. They get a bad rap, they're dismissed under the term pulp writer. But that, when you are out in the trenches doing this sort of thing, and All Story will pay you $150. You got to have it next week, though. You learn the basics really quickly, or you don't get out, or you don't stay in the business. So even though this is fairly light and fairly programmatic, it's still enjoyable. It's still enjoyable to read for the most part. It's not a wholesale recommendation here. Not that you're ever going to come across a copy of The Hungry Gun. It's not a wholesale recommendation. There are problems. We'll get to those. But the basic premise is well done. It's well executed. It's very familiar. Someone trying to put their criminal past behind them, that's an extremely familiar premise. It is perennially popular with readers and also, a la John Wick, with audience members. So there's nothing unexpected here. But as the well-constructed opening chapters of the book deploy, there are suddenly a rash of stagecoach robberies. There's suddenly a rash of the kind of crime done in the kind of way that Will Cade once did when he was with Pidge Leapy. And word starts to spread in Flag. People start to dig into his past and maybe suspect him of being behind these things, of putting on a clean facade for the town, so that he can fleece them, so that he can take advantage of them. There's even talk in the town of taking matters into their own hands. Let's not even leave it for the sheriff. Let's take care of Will Cade right now ourselves. Which leaves Will Cade with two options. One is to get out of town. He goes on the lam for a while in this book. And the other is to find out what the real culprit is, right? Obviously, to clear his own name, he has to do that. And that leads us to lots of adventures out in the wilderness, lots of adventures among First Nations people. Naturally, it leads to a climactic confrontation with the bad guys, with the people who are actually behind these crimes. And I'm just noticing that this paperback really did not survive my read, and that's okay. I got this either, I don't remember exactly. I either got this cheap or free, and I only wanted it for June on the Range, and no one ever made these things to last forever. So the fact that I'm not going to get another read out of this doesn't really break me up. Maybe my next book for June on the Range will be an ebook anyway, since they don't deteriorate. But I want to read you an action sequence in this book to show you the problem that I had with the main problem that I had with it. I don't really have a problem with how intensely predictable it all is. As you know, if you watch this channel, I don't really care if an author is giving me original stuff. I care about the execution, not the conception. But I don't mind the unoriginality, but I do mind that sometimes this author is just typing. He's just pounding away on a typewriter. And sometimes he does not seem to notice or to care that he's letting scenes go on too long. And oddly enough, it is odd. I don't usually see this happen, but throughout the book, the scenes that tend to go on too long are the action scenes. Now, any of you who have ever tried it will know it is a Herculean, difficult task to write a good action scene. You might not think so, but it's 100 times harder than writing a good scene of dialogue. And this, I guess what I'm trying to say is that Steve Thurman is not all that good at it, which is kind of strange considering that I'm betting he wrote a lot of pulps and they revolve around action sequence. I want to read you, maybe you won't agree with me, but I want to read you an example of what I'm talking about. The Apache ran at Will Cade. Will Cade is almost never referred to without first and last name. The Apache ran at Will Cade in the bounding manner of his kind, leaping high with each second or third step, twisting and turning as he did so, a sinuous, implacable rush. The knife was a blinding glitter of light as Cade tried to find his gaze on it alone, excluding everything else. Fine, his gaze. His fist tightly squeezed the .44, empty now but for offering him his sole faint chance to live. As a click came in as the buck came in with a final leap, the knife feinting, swift as the dart of a snake's tongue, then flicking in a deadly slash to rip him open, Cade swung the gun. He aimed at the other's wrist with the grim intent to smash the bone. Keep in mind, these .44 pistols, they were a heavy piece of metal. They worked as a club. Anyway, he missed, but still caught the blade on the .44's barrel, a ringing clash of metal on metal. Both knife and gun flew aside, spinning away. Then the buck slammed into him, ragged nails ripping at his eyes, tearing his face, knee lifted in a wicked attempt to maim, all blowtorch fury and a stench of hot sweat and rancid grease in Will Cade's nostrils. Explosive vitality, which it seemed nothing could subdue. But Cade managed to get both hands up, managed to sink his fingers into corded neck muscles. He summoned the last reserve of strength left to him and poured that strength into his hands, locking them, squeezing and then squeezing harder, feeling for the flow of life from the heart to brain in a try to stifle it forever. The buck screamed once, a piercing cry which ran far across the plain. He reached deep for all that was within him also, dealing more wicked hurt to Cade in a frantic attempt to break free. Will Cade tried to maintain his grip on the other's throat. It was like an attempt to throttle a panther that was clawing his unprotected middle to ribbons. The two of them were staggering about, kicking up a cloud of acrid dust, a fog which enveloped them both, and Cade had the rubbery feel in his legs again, and the knowledge they were giving way, the last of his strength rushing from him. His senses fading into grayness, this, he told himself dimly, was the finish. A life which might have found meaning was trickling off into the nothingness before him. He tried to fight on a final convulsive effort, but it was no use. He was falling helplessly. He landed hard on his back, his head struck against the earth, and all things came to a crashing end. And it goes on. I mean, he isn't dead, obviously, because that's like chapter 10. But I don't know, maybe you think differently, but that is just... I got to the point long before this chapter in the middle of the book where I was dreading when something like that was going to happen. I was looking forward to what should have been more tedious scenes that weren't action. I think that's a bad way to write a fight scene. It wasn't exciting at all. It isn't exciting to read. You can't easily picture it. It's choreographically boring. So, and unfortunately, this is an action novel, so it happens all throughout, and that kind of dimmed things for me. So, The Hungry Gun, my latest foray on June in the Range, not a total thumbs up. I don't know if I'll be reading a Western tonight. I have a guest. That'll be a conversation late into the night. Probably new releases. I've got a ton of other books that I've got in the last 24 hours. But if I do, I will make a report tomorrow on whatever it is, probably an ebook. And we'll reconvene then, a ways down the trail. Thank you, BookTube.